Scotty, beam me up.
Alrighty, Captains, we are back on the bridge. How are you, Caps?
Captain on the bridge.
So, today, quite an exciting day. We will be doing an interview with Matthew Capocci, and he'll totally correct me if I said that wrong. He is the assistant editor for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And I'm super, super excited for this, for him to come join us here on the bridge where we'll ask him some questions and really just get to know him, and we'll tell the story of how we actually met Matthew once he gets on the bridge. So what we're going to do is I have a set of questions. Then after, because we are doing this live, if there are any questions from the viewers, from my fellow captains, we will see if we have enough time. But we want to be respectful this time, of course, so that, because he actually has a stream. So is that Matthew?
Hello.
It is. Yes, let's go.
I was really scared because I was trying to get in the room and Zoom was like, installing update, and I was like, what? Wait, what? Like the worst time to do this.
What a time to do so. Matthew, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Very
exciting.
It is, and it was so weird. If you'll allow me, before we start, I'll tell the story of how we sort of met. And correct me if I'm wrong, just to make sure, because I am old and I forget. I tend to forget things. So.
Oh, you know what? Before we do any correcting, I never did tell you what my last name was. So how to say it? It's Capocci. Think of cappuccino. That's okay. Everybody gets it wrong, so it's fine.
What did I just say? I said he'll correct me if I'm wrong. It's Capocci.
Yes.
Capocci.
But Capocci, yeah. If you think of like a cappuccino, it's very, very Italian.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a crack at my last name. You see it there on the screen. How do you say my last name?
Wait. Villamarin?
Oh.
Is that?
That's
close?
That's close. Now, because of its sort of Spanish origins, it's Villamarin.
Ah.
But kind of the same thing with, your last name. So there we go. See, this is how it starts. This is how it starts. I'm
terrible with names.
And
I'm even worse with Twitch names.
Oh
I'm
my
like
gosh.
the king. I'm the king of mispronouncing Twitch names. So
speaking of Twitch, again, to the story that we were gonna share with everyone on how we met.
Yes.
So one day, I was streaming Star Trek Online, and all of a sudden we received a raid. And I was, of course, jump scared as usual, because that's how it happens. And I believe you had said something to the effect in chat, because I think we were talking about Strange New Worlds at the time when you came in, and
you had Strange New Worlds in your title of your stream.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
That's why I rated you.
No, so and then I actually went back to watch your VOD, and if again, correct me if I'm wrong, you were actually looking for someone to raid, like no one's on, and then you were kind of just searching and looking, and then you think, who's this guy? Trizander. And then that's how you met. And then in the chat you said, I believe that's when you said you were one of the assistant editors, right? Yeah, for Strange New Worlds. And of course I don't stream normally with a face cam, so you didn't see my face, but my reaction was,
oh no, you know what it was? It was one of the people in chat from my group, because a lot of them follow me around. They follow my IMDb page, and they're always trying to see what show. They know me from The Good Place, because that's kind of when I started streaming, was kind of after that. So, and that's kind of a lot of my audience, they know me from The Good Place, and then they kind of search. They kind of keep track of like what shows I'm going to next.
No.
And I think it was somebody in chat from my side that was like, "Hey, guess what? He works on Strange New Worlds." And that's when
Okay, there you go.
and
So
that's when you lost it, and it was amazing.
I lost it. I lost it because, yeah, and then again, the reason why I did respectfully, of course, ask for this because I have been loving Strange New Worlds. Now we're going to talk about a lot of that later. We're going to talk about a lot of that later. But one of the so the plan is I have a set of questions to ask you, and I want to be respectful of your time. We may have to reset again, but just let me know if we're going over. But we have set a time for this. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, I know we kind of delved into a little bit here, and then after the series of questions, there may be some questions for you, if that's okay. From our viewers. So we'll see how that goes. So I want to start off with tell us about yourself.
Well, nothing crazy. Like, I'm just originally from Ohio, and I've always wanted to pursue a career in TV and film editing on the post-production side, as like a picture editor. And there's not really a lot of that kind of work in Ohio or like the Midwest. There's a lot of like stuff in production, a lot of stuff that gets shot in there, like Cleveland, Georgia, so all those places, but there's not like a lot of like posts, but like usually the hub is always like Los Angeles, just in Hollywood. So I figured, I want to move to Los Angeles and just kind of pursue this career as editing. And so I've always been surrounded by entertainment. It's like my family, my parents, my sister, myself, we're all theater actors. I've done musical theater for like 16 years, and I love acting, but there was something about like editing. They're just like doing the storytelling aspect of it, which I always really loved. And as I got older, I was acting less, and then I wanted to go into more of like the editing. So in 2000, I bought my own computer system, and I bought like Adobe Premiere, which was, I think at the time was like 4.5. It was just like super old. Like you had to render, like nothing was in real time. Like you had to render everything. And it was so annoying. Like even like a simple fade from black or transition, it was like a 2-minute render or something stupid. It's like, what is this? So, I just kind of like bought my own machine because, college was just really expensive. It was kind of too expensive, and film school is like even more expensive. And it's like 100 plus thousand to go to film school. And I couldn't afford that. So I just kind of self-taught everything, bought my own computer, bought my own hardware, software, and just kind of started with, just doing like experimental shorts, or just kind of making my own trailers, just kind of like capturing like a whole film and then cutting like a trailer out of it or something like that. Just keep getting practice and stuff like that. And then eventually I started working as an editor for a local production company, making like commercials and corporate videos and stuff like that. And then I moved out to Los Angeles, and unfortunately, you could be like an editor for 10 years, but if you don't have New York or LA on your resume, it just kind of like, they kind of want to go for like people who are working in, those two locations. So it was really hard to try and get work out here, without that on your resume. But fortunately, after going through a ton of interviews, a commercial company, picked me up, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, it's like, we love your work." And I was like, "Oh, this is really great." And, I just kind of started with that. I worked on a lot of like commercials, and then I moved over to theatrical trailers for a couple of years. And, after doing that, I actually got the hours needed to work in network television, since it's basically union. Some not all shows are union. Some shows are union. Some shows are not union. But like the majority of the narrative shows, the not reality shows, they're usually union. So you have to get in the union for that, and you have to actually get your hours. And fortunately, working on theatrical trailers, because it's being like broadcasted in theaters, it counted, and I didn't know that. And I was like, oh, well, this is cool. So I had my hours, and and for 10 years now, I've been working in network television, just on like numerous shows, and that's kind of like my career of how I got out here. And then and also you can tell in the background, I'm also like a big video game board gamer. And I also have a Twitch channel called the Silver Metal Tavern, and I just play board games, sometimes video games. But yeah, I'm just like a really chill person. I love entertainment. I love movies. I love board games, video games, and stuff. And that's kind of like me in a nutshell. There's really not much more exciting.
We'll get to that, but there is plenty more exciting, trust me. Now, you mentioned something there just now, something about editing and storytelling. So for me,
Yes.
because I don't know a lot of how that works and behind the scenes, because what I get to see as a viewer is whatever's on, on the screen. So when I'm watching something, I just, in my mind, isn't that how it is, right? Like, just isn't that just like one shot or whatever, or cutting pieces? Like, how does the editing storytelling aspect work? Because you said you loved storytelling through editing. Like, what does that actually mean by putting, like, you probably get a bunch of footage, and then how do you?
Yeah, we basically get a ton of footage. They basically shoot every day for like about 12 days or so, just depending on what show you're on. Sometimes it's more. If it's a film, they'll shoot even more days, and basically you just get a bunch of footage. They call them dailies, and we basically get all that footage, and we kind of organize it. Me being the assistant editor, we organize a lot of that footage for the editor to put together. And it's like, yeah, unless you're shooting like a movie like Birdman or something, where it's just like it's just a oneer throughout the entire film or something. But a lot of it, we just get a lot of stuff. It's all shot out of order. So, and then we just kind of like combine it together, and it's, editing it's always been fascinating, just editing for me. When I was growing up, I got into editing mostly because of my yaya, which is grandmother in Greek. I'm Greek Italian, and my yaya, she was like one of the first people to own like a consumer VHS VCR, it was like back in the 80s. And it was like the machines were huge, ginormous. They had these like ginormous, like mechanical buttons, like you click play and rewind and start. And it's just like, seriously, they were monstrous buttons. But she would record everything on like the HBO, Showtime, the movie channel, Cinemax. Just record tons of movies. And I kid you not, she had about like over 3,000 VHS tapes, and they were all set on extended play. So she had like 4 movies on each tape.
Jeez.
And it was just, well, it was like this behind me, but VHS tapes. And it was like in multiple rooms, and it was just like, it was insane. It was like a video store. And just growing up, all I did was just watch films constantly. And what was really interesting about her recording style, she never really knew what movie she was recording. She was like, oh, this is a movie, Beverly Hills Cop, whatever. And she was just like, all right, we're just gonna record it. But she didn't realize that we were going to be watching this stuff. And she was like, well, I don't know what this is. What's the content of this? So what she would do is, if ever they were like swearing, or if there was like nudity or anything that was definitely like not appropriate for a child, she would pause it and start it again after the gratuitous violence, swearing, whatever. But the best part was, she couldn't anticipate when that was going to happen in the film. So what happened was, the character would come in and they would just drop an F-bomb or something. And then all of a sudden, right afterwards, the screen clips were in a completely different scene. Like the tracking's all messed up. The rainbow lines are everywhere. So you could tell she like paused it and unpaused it, but her timing was off. and that just like happened. I've grew up with tons of movies that were like that, and then growing up watching the complete movies of these, I was like, oh my gosh, you can actually like take scenes out or put them back in, or just like this, just because these complete versions and stuff. And I think that's what kind of got me into like editing, is like the idea that you can, you know, you can like trim the fat of something, you know, if you don't want something in there, you can kind of cut it. And it's amazing when you cut it, it almost tells like a completely different story sometimes, like losing complete scenes. So that's kind of where like my love for editing kind of came into play. And and it's kind of like that in like a lot of shows and movies. It's like a lot of times we cut a show or a film like much longer than it's intended to be, and we just kind of like take out scenes, take out like maybe just some like lines that they're just kind of like slowing the scene down or something, and we just kind of like do these lifts. And I think like it's almost like editing is like creating music. It has a pacing to it, and you can tell when you're watching it if something's just like too long or too cutty, and it's just you're trying to like add stuff, take stuff out to just try and get this really nice like fluid form of storytelling. And yeah, it's just kind of like how I really got into it. Sorry, that was like a very, very long long answer to something like that.
No, for me, I actually enjoy that because it makes sense. Because there's always those sort of when something's released afterwards on a DVD or something, or a documentary of the movie, the deleted scenes, right? And you said something there was you have this hour plus long movie that has a bunch of, and you start trimming things. Like, to me, as someone, as a viewer, I'm like, why not just leave it there? But you're saying it kind of almost changes sometimes could change the direction or a meaning of a scene and all that stuff. And picking and choosing that, I would think is sort of difficult. No? Or do you have something to
follow? Well, it's like sometimes you watch a lot of like movies, then they release like director's cuts and they have deleted scenes in them. I mean, Star Trek's a great example. I mean, there's a lot of deleted scenes in some of the special editions that they put back in. Wrath of Khan being a great example of stuff that they added back. Undiscovered Country, they added a couple scenes back in that I thought they were really good. And then sometimes you watch deleted scenes and it's just like, oh, this just something about this just isn't working, and sometimes it's really funny. An example, it's not Star Trek related, but it's like, you ever seen Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the old Kevin Costner Robin Hood?
Yes.
It's the theatrical version and the director extended cut. They are very different. Like when you add those scenes back in of the sheriff being like the son of the witch, so she raises him, and it becomes a little bit more silly. Like Alan Rickman's like characters, like Alec Rickman's characters, like a little bit more a silly sheriff, like with all those scenes added back in, versus like when all those scenes were taken out, it really changed like his character, like the way his character is. His character's like not as goofy as he is like with the whole sea story of like the witch that actually really raised the sheriff of Nottingham and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? It's kind of better with that stuff out. So sometimes, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And it's just always like really hard to figure out like when to take scenes out, when to leave them back in, or when's it working, when's it not working. And it's just kind of watch it. But yeah, sometimes, unless this is like for pacing, it's like a lot of times, you could take stuff out, and making it shorter helps it flow a lot more. Because sometimes if the same things seem too long, then you just kind of drift away from the story, and like your attention just starts to drift a little bit. And sometimes you just need to like kind of trim that fat in the cut to just kind of help like move the story along, and you just keep your excitement up and make sure there's no like lulls in anything. So
actually that makes a lot of sense, because with the previous formats of, let's say, Star Trek Discovery, the whole long story arc, a lot of recurring themes I see from discussions of that are things dragged on too long. That could have just been one episode. That could have just been X. and that makes sense now. Like, because again, to me, I don't really quite under the inners, and this is why I thought this would be so interesting, because not only do you have your hands on in that process behind the screen, but you kind of are part of having the story flow, right? Making sure that it flows, makes sense, and not drag on too long. And that's one thing that I noted down here while you're talking, because pacing, especially for Strange New Worlds, for me, I have found was just on point. Like, even though we'd be going through one scene after another, it didn't feel too long, it didn't feel too short, and then by the whole wrap up of the episode, it was just
no, it's perfect. We have incredible editors. Our editors on this show are just top notch. They're the best. They're so good at editing this show, and it's great because we've seen these episodes like 50 times at this point, and they never get old for us. It's like we could watch these episodes like 100 times, and sometimes we do. And it's like it never gets tiresome. I mean, we have the editors on this show are just excellent, and they're amazing to work with.
And so how big is the team? You say editors, how big is
a lot of
I just think of
yeah, a lot of and a lot of single cam shows in the industry are usually like 3-team shows. Sometimes there's less. Usually, if it's like a sitcom, if it's like a 30-minute sitcom, sometimes they'll have 2 teams. But usually, like the hour-long shows are usually about a 3-team group, because it's a lot to cut an hour episode. If it's just one editor cutting 10 hour-long episodes, that's a lot of work.
Right.
That's a lot of work for one editor. So they split up a lot. That we have multiple teams, and usually the first team usually works on the first episode and the last episode, and then the other 2 teams just kind of is a nice even distribution between the other teams. So,
well, I mean, I know probably not gonna be able to talk about all the innards and outers of that, but I just thought it was really interesting to touch on that, because again, this is why I wanted to have the discussion with you, because I don't understand it, but it sounds like it is a huge part in telling a story. And
yeah,
I've said it before, and I'll say it again, I'll keep saying it. The Strange New Worlds has kept me engaged throughout beginning to end. And a lot of it has to do with, I guess now, if you think about it, the editing, because
it's like a combination. But I mean, but it's a combination of so many. I mean, there's it's excellent writing, it's just production value, it's editing, it's music, the VFX work. I mean, there's so many people on the show that just do amazing work, and that's just it's never like one department that just carries like the whole show. It's just everyone just working in unison, working together, working like a starship.
Yeah.
It's like everyone has to do their duties and their work, and they all do excellent work. It's just amazing. And then when you see the final product, you're just blown away by it. I even though I've seen the shows like so many times, every time when I see them air and I watch them, I just get this wave of just excitement. And it's funny because it's like, why am I getting this wave of excitement? I already know this episode so well, and it's like, well, it's like now it's like you see it fully colored, and it's fully mixed, and it's just all the VFX are final, and it's gorgeous. I mean, it's a gorgeous show.
I mean,
I love
Bruce spoke to that, actually. Like, he didn't know how it was gonna be, because it was like a year at this point, right? Like what you were kind of saying. So, but then one of the questions I asked him, "What's your favorite show?" which we're gonna go into in a sec here, he said Strange New Worlds. I was like, what? And I'd have to agree with him. So, like, again, I'm trying not to fanboy too much over it, but I can't help it. I don't know.
Oh, you're fine.
I don't know what compelled me to cover from doing nothing of that type of sort of commentary or doing videos on those things to just doing them from the character trailers, the trailer before the series, and then my sort of version of review and reacting to them. It's just it's been so good. Everything has been. I said when I was covering the character trailers, if this was all the good bits that they showed of all the characters, I'm done. I'm sold. Everything else from the episode would just be bonuses. But that's how good I think even just the trailers were done for me personally.
Oh, and hats off to our promo department and the marketing department. There are some amazing trailers that they've been releasing. It's so good, and you know, we watch them almost immediately when we see them hit like Twitter or something, and we just kind of we shared the video around, and we're like, oh my gosh, look at this trailer. It's like so good. Yes, we get our promo and marketing department, they're really like killing it with the promos and trailers and everything. It's really great.
Now, going to Star Trek, this is what I did with Bruce, and we're gonna do the same thing with you, sir. I have a series of questions that you just have to answer whatever first comes to your mind.
Oh my goodness.
So good luck.
First comes to my mind.
Yes.
Oh, God.
So good luck. There's no wrong answer. Well, maybe. We'll see. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Favorite Star Trek series?
Oh, yeah, that's gotta be TNG. It's mostly TNG because, you know, that's when I really started to understand, you know, what Star Trek was and, you know, what it was all about. And, you know, because it was very close between TNG and TOS, because technically I started with TOS, and I watching TOS, I didn't really understand what was happening because I was probably about 6 when I started watching TOS, and I was watching like some weird episodes. Like I was watching like Cat's, like I think like Cat's Paw, and what are some of the other like insane episodes that I was watching that I never really like understood them. Anyways, it was just a lot of like weird, almost like Spock's brain or something like that. I was like, what is this show? It was like The Naked Time, Miri, like the Man-Eater. And I was just like, wow, this show is kind of crazy, kind of scary, because I didn't really understand what was happening. Mm-hmm. But then once I started watching like TNG, I was much older, and then I was like really understanding the show. And then I actually went back and I binged through like TOS. But I think TNG is always going to be my favorite show, just because they had so many episodes. It's like wonderful episodes, like 170 some episodes or something insane. So they win by numbers. I do I want to say Strange New Worlds, and but it's, you know, I did grow up with TNG like through so it is my favorite, and then Strange New Worlds is my second.
There you go. At least that's in there. Okay, now favorite starship.
Oh, favorite starship? It's probably a go-to for a ton of people. I mean, I'm gonna say that I was gonna say the TNG Enterprise, because I love that ship, because I grew up loving TNG. But I'm actually going back to the original NCC 1701, because what our VFX department is doing with the ships in Strange New Worlds, the Enterprise looks so beautiful. And that opening main title, where it's just powering up, it's basically like Star Trek the Motion Picture when Kirk sees the Enterprise after like 20 years, and it's like 10 minutes of just powering up the Enterprise and just coasting around it. I mean, it's, you know, that main title is so smartly created that it's just, I'm starting to love the original ship again. And I think the original ship is now bumped up over the Enterprise D. But I will say this, it's probably in my top 3, and I don't know what kind of Enterprise this is, but in All Good Things TNG, Riker's ship, when it like decloaks and it just comes out and it just melts all those Klingon ships. That, I don't know what ship that is, because I know what seeing your Star Trek Online stuff, that you seem very knowledgeable as far as like the ships go. Like the ships are kind of like you seem to be very into the ships. Um, so I was like, maybe you might know what that ship is, but and that ship has probably never been put into commission, but that ship was bonkers. It cloaked, it just destroyed everything. It had this weird like almost like a lance shape. It had a third nacelle. I was like, what is going on with this ship? It's completely OP.
It is in Star Trek Online. It's classified as a dreadnought, but it's also called as the Galaxy X because all it
The
is
Galaxy X. Okay.
Galaxy X. All they did was add a lance and a third nacelle and some fins and some cannons. It was weird.
It's gorgeous.
Sure, I'll take it. I'll take it. That ship is up there as well for me, but I'd say that scene in All Good Things resonated with me because it was just uncloaking episode. And then literally melting the Klingons. Yes.
Yeah.
So your favorite ship is the original series Connie, right?
Original series is now bumped up back to the top because of Strange New Worlds, and then Enterprise D, and then probably coming in third, Riker's OP ship. So
perfect. Okay, now your favorite number one.
Oh, favorite number one. It's probably Riker.
Riker? Okay.
Yeah, he's got so many cool things, like things that he does. Sitting in chairs and
that's what Bruce said.
Oh, really? I think that's what everybody says. It's like, how he sits in chairs. No, one thing I really loved about Riker, it's like he always had these like great looks. Like every time he like looked in the monitor or something, he just had this like really good stares, and it's almost like you would see like his lower eye like twitch like a little bit. He was just like, he's like Riker just shot these like great looks at the camera, which is great. No, I love Riker. Beard or beardless. It's like Riker's. He's always been my favorite number one. It's just be funny. I'm gonna be like gravitating towards a lot of TNG stuff.
You're gonna be like me. Okay, so I may have to switch the order of this one. How about your favorite tactical officer?
What is tactical officer like? Are technical officers?
Think of La'an.
But are technical officers and security officers the same thing? Like the security officer and the tactical officer control the guns? Because I feel like that's what Chekhov did. Like Chekhov, I think, was the security officer, and he was like in the movies. And he was like in control of like the torpedoes and everything. But yeah, tactical officer. I mean, I gotta say Worf. I love Worf, and I feel sorry for Worf too, because Worf gets shot down more than any character in Star Trek. Anytime Worf recommends something, and usually like his recommendations sometimes aren't the best. He's kind of like, I suggest we blow them up. Just like, no, yeah, this is a terrible idea, Worf. But no, poor Worf gets shot down a lot, but I do really like him as a tactical officer. So it's probably going to be Worf. Wow, TNG is getting a lot of them right now.
No, I feel that. Okay, so now favorite doctor.
This one's tough. Favorite doctor. Oh man. Favorite doctor. Oh boy. The doctor's really tough, actually. I love McCoy. But right now I'm really loving Benga like a lot. Babs is a fantastic actor, and I've been kind of following a lot of other films that he's been a part of, and I really love how he is as this character, and he has actually become like my favorite now. And I'm gonna say like maybe second McCoy, but I really like Mbenga like a lot. I've just been really impressed with this character.
I would have to also probably think of that one because Mbanga is quickly becoming oof. Just what's getting me is his tone.
Yeah.
It's that there's a grit in his voice, and when he's speaking to you, it's like it's such a I don't know, like a fatherly wisdom is all I can really think of, and especially maybe the reason why, of course, is how his character development has gone. But
There's been a lot of really emotional moments with his character too, just with like episode 8. That is just the whole I mean, just that whole just everything that character is just going through with his daughter was just heartbreaking. Putting your daughter in the pattern buffer, trying to find a cure, potentially finding a cure in episode 6. And then, just there's a lot of feels.
Oh my gosh, there was so much
stories.
feels. My face was leaking, but my face always leaks when it comes to that. Okay, so this is where you have to be careful, sir. No, I'm just kidding. Favorite engineer?
Oh,
careful.
I know it.
Careful.
It is Hemmer.
Then
it
okay.
is. It is Hemmer. No, it is Hemmer. And I have a whole thing on like why Hemmer is like my favorite character. But let's get through the other favorite. No, Hemmer was my favorite. It's like we're like episode 9 now, and it's just like, I know that wound is fresh for a lot of people because it just happened. But for now everyone knows like the set pain and sadness I've been going through for a year.
Oh, close that.
No, Hemmer. I love Hemmer. I love all the I love a lot of the engineers. Like I love Trip. I love Trip was really great too. I really love Trip from Enterprise. I was always a huge fan of Scotty. But yeah, it's just Hemmer is currently my favorite. It's always like favorites are really hard to answer for like something like Star Trek. Star Trek is such an ocean of of just stuff.
Yep.
And it's like it's so hard. It's like when people ask me like behind me like what's your favorite board game? It's like I can never really say. I have like 300 board games behind me. I can never really tell. I'm always 300? On like some kind. Yeah, there's 2 other ginormous shelves like this like back yonder. And it's like that has always been a hard question like on something that's like really big. It's like and I think it's always on rotation. Like the favorites are always on a rotation at some point. Who knows? Maybe 5 years down the road, Hemmer will be rotated out by Scotty or maybe Trip or somebody. So
it's a moving
but
target.
Yeah, it's always changing. It's always changing. But currently, Hemmer is my favorite.
We're gonna circle back to that one, sir. Last one.
No.
Favorite episode and why?
Favorite episode. It's got to be TNG. There's 2 very close ones tied for second, or tied for first. Sorry, I say second because I'm the Silver Medal Tavern and I'm like really into second place. Sorry. Hey. So probably TNG, A Matter of Honor, which is the episode where Riker goes over to the Klingon ship and he serves on a Klingon ship for a little bit, and then there's like the organism that's like eating away the plating of the Enterprise and the Klingon ship, and the captain thinks that it was sabotage and all this stuff. And I really, really enjoy that episode a lot, as well as Who Watches the Watchers is another one of my favorites. That is the one where they're observing like a Bronze Age of the race of Vulcans, or an offshoot of the Vulcans, and they get discovered, and one of the people not dies, but he's basically like pretty much mortally wounded, and they beam him onto the Enterprise. They treat him. He wakes up during the operation. He sees Picard, and he thinks Picard is like this godlike figure. He's like, oh, the Picard, and then they beam him back down, and they kind of failed at erasing his memory, and that's really great, because I love that episode, because you get a lot of really great performances from Patrick. Just that whole, like, when he just flips out when the guy says, well, you're gonna have to walk around pretending to be a god now, and he's just like, no. No. And it's I just love that episode, and just how they beam put someone up, because you have to imagine, like, how would you feel like if you got like beamed on like this on this ship of this race of people that just are these creatures who are just so technologically advanced, and it's like, what would you just think? Your mind would be blown. And I think that's just what I love about that episode. It's just like being in that moment, where she was the character, I can't remember what her name was, but when Picard beams her up and it's like, here's our ship, here's your planet, I'm not a god, I'm just I'm a captain of this starship, we're a bunch of explorers, and it's just so hard for her not to be like, oh, you're the greatest thing in the universe. And it's just, I love that episode so much. And then in the end,
uh-oh